Welcome, everyone, to Gooey's Dungeon Dive, the podcast where I, Gooey, rank all of the dungeons in Zelda, and I'm joined by my special Wind Waker correspondent, Corey Richmond.
I like that. That's a good title.
Yeah, it's like you're the expert on Wind Waker.
Yeah, it makes me sound very important.
And you are. You know more about this game than me, I'm sure, so you can correct me if I'm ever wrong here.
All right, I'll do my best.
Today, we're going to properly begin our journey through the Wind Waker. And we start off the game with the tale of the legendary hero. It's set to that mythical sounding tune, and it's presented like it's some kind of ancient text. And we learn of the legend in this game, I guess, which is in a peaceful kingdom that held a golden power, a powerful evil man took this power and spread darkness throughout the land. A child clothed in green appeared wielding a magical blade to seal away the evil man. And of course, following along at home, we all know that this game recognizes the boy, and we recognize the boy as the hero of time. There's more to the story, though, from Beyond Ocarina of Time, which is that the man eventually broke the seal and resumed his activities, his evil activities. But this time, the hero did not appear to face the man, and the people of the land appealed to the gods. But at this point, no one knows what happened to this kingdom.
It's kind of fitting that we just recently talked about intros on Tier Force Heroes. Shout out to Tier Force Heroes. You should go watch that show. Yeah. We didn't really talk about these sort of intro cutscenes because we sometimes get these types of cutscenes to open up Zelda games, and I sometimes forget about this one, which is funny because every time I watch it I get chills, and I think this is easily the best one of those, bar none, in the whole series. It sets the tone so well. I love it so much. Even just that music track, if you didn't have visuals, that track tells a story.
The tone is awesome. It's kind of too, we talked a little bit about the title screen and how just even like people seeing what Wind Waker was for the first time, it's like, oh, this seems like a cartoony direction for the series, but then this tone comes out and it goes so hard, you know, it's like a little intense.
It's pretty like somber in tone too. It's, you know, it basically ends with, and then they were all gonna die, and they only had hope, and that's it.
Yeah, and that'll be a theme that's coming up more throughout the game, as there is kind of this dark underbelly to the game, I guess you could say, or like implications to the game.
Wind Waker, the renowned dark and edgy Zelda game.
It's so edgy. Another thing I think we're going to keep addressing, what I think is really interesting about this is I think it's kind of the first Zelda game in which the legend, quote, aspect of it is actually looking back on a previous game in this sort of way. Like, we've had other games that are direct sequels and some that do some interesting things, like how Link's Awakening is kind of a commentary or whatever you want to call it on other Zelda games and other video games. But I think that this is the first one that really treats a previous game in the series as truly like a legend. You know, it's my belief, as I've played this before, but we'll see that kind of theme to play more elements of like not just in the story but more even meta of like this game's position as a sequel to a legendary series, but also carving it kind of new direction, you know, for the series as well.
That's definitely true. Up to this point, it was, if a game referenced another game, it was usually either a direct sequel or a prequel of some sort. This legend up front really treats Ocarina of Time specifically with a lot of reverence. Like you said, it's kind of cool that it plays into not only referencing the legend in the story of the Wind Waker, but, you know, in terms of the franchise itself, it's, you know, kind of a similar thing. It's like a follow-up to Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, you mentioned like prequel, like the other games where like they were not just direct sequels, like it would be like from Legend of Zelda to A Link to the Past. It was more like, this is set long before that. They weren't really doing it for necessarily a story reason or anything like that. It was just like, we want to kind of be not held back by anything. This is like a looking back on the series. I think it really stands out, like that part where Link's on the horse and the Zelda theme is just blasting. Ooh. Like the tone shifts and it gets kind of triumphant, you know, that's...
You're giving me chills just talking about it.
The end of the legend, it makes reference to an island that holds reverence for this hero, and that brings us to our next chapter, which is on Outset Island. Here we got Link, and he lives here on this island with his sister and his grandmother. And we got a nice little opening sequence here where Errol, his sister, finds him sleeping up on her little favorite lookout spot on the island. Errol's lookout, I think she calls it.
She's got the first dialogue in the game.
Oi!
Oi!
Oi! She's cute, kind of a playful little kid, and she has like a, you can already tell like a nice little bond with Link. It's adorable. It's Link's birthday. Errol says, Grandma's got a gift for you or whatever, and we get to kind of set off and, if you want, explore the island. And it's a nice little opening area. You can meet the neighbors, get a sense of this little village you live in, and it's got some nice, I think, pretty good, like, non-obtrusive, like, tutorialization, kind of like Ocarina of Time, Kokiri Forest. It's that kind of area.
As I was playing it in preparation for this, there were even more specific tutorial stuff where I was looking at it and I was like, the way that they fold it into the world so seamlessly, I actually was more impressed with this time than I have been before. If you go and talk to the lady who's holding a pot on her head, she tells you how to perform that with game mechanics. She says walk up to it and press A to pick it up on your head, but she presents it to you in the way of, Errol told me that she wanted to learn how to pick up pots, so could you go and tell her that you just need to walk up to it and press A to lift it up? I just love that they include little details like that, justify why those tutorial elements are there.
Most of the characters, they have like cute little Zelda characterizations or little quirks, which I like. I like Orca and his brother. They're brothers, but they're so different.
It's like Brains versus Brawn. They both are just talking crap about each other.
Yeah, but they both like provide you with the gameplay basics.
The elements of their tutorial stuff is totally representative of their approaches too, because Orca, who's all about muscle and performance and stuff, his tutorial thing is literally a combat minigame, and Sturgeon's is literally a bunch of papers posted on the wall that have notes you can read, you know?
That's good to have, like almost a manual in the game, but you don't need to go through all that. Another cool thing about the island is there's, little secrets you can find, which gets you kind of on that Zelda secret finding itch right away, and there's teases of some areas you can't really get to, which is nice. And they even give you, like, right away, you have like sort of a side quest with the pigs.
If you go out into the water, you can meet Beetle, you can do some shopping, you can get a bait bag, you can test out a highway pair if you want.
Get into the economy, get your membership card going. You could also just not do that, and you can go right straight to meet Link's grandma, who's a sweet old lady, and we get more story there, connecting with the opening legend, because they mentioned, it's this island's custom that when a boy comes of age, they garb them in the green clothes of the hero of time. They want to instill like a sense of courageousness into the kid, I guess, and we'll see Link kind of right away displaying some of those traits here pretty soon.
That's also something that we've gotten tastes of it in the past, like Ocarina of Time references Link's mom in passing in like a little bit of dialogue, and then in A Link to the Past we see Link's uncle. But this is the first time really that we get to see, what Link's life is like living with the family members that he has. We never really see Link with a sibling or with a grandma. It's like, this is your family, When
I think of Link's uncle and that stuff, like, that is like pure hard stuff. Like, this game is starting off intense. With this, it's like there's tenderness to it, Link has like a cute little family.
It really is. It kind of like, even if you don't spend a ton of time on Outset, even if you just do the bare minimum story stuff to get the story rolling, it makes the effort of like making you bond with these characters in this island.
The clothes he gets actually seem uncomfortable.
Yeah, his face when he gets them, he's like, oh, thanks, Grandma.
There's a lot of goofy scenes in the beginning with Link, or throughout the game, I guess, where they show that he doesn't have the persona of like a hero, He has the courage, but he's not this big epic hero. Just a kid. Really, that's been in most of the games in a weird way, but I think it really stands out in this game with the design and everything, the cutesiness,
In a lot of Zelda games, Link starts out as just a kid or just this guy living in this small town place, and then immediately gets like a big destiny thrust upon him. In this game, it's still kind of like, it takes a little bit longer to build up to that. You get a slice of life of what Link's regular life is like.
They have you do this sort of rigmarole of like, go talk to grandma. We get the setup of the shield, I want to say. We have to remember there's the family shield that everyone displays. And grandma's like, all right, you can go see what Errol's doing, you know. So you're kind of moving around. Of course, we got to go back to Errol for Link's little birthday celebration, I guess. And it's a cute, like, she doesn't really have a gift for him. She's just like, you can borrow my telescope, which I think is sweet.
Only borrow it for the day, though.
Well, you know, what else is she going to give him, you know?
Found this shell on the beach.
You look through the telescope there, and you see that postman. And that's when another, I think, really cool scene in this starts, where you look up and there's this great evil bird thing in the sky being pursued by a pirate ship. It's like flinging these cannonballs at the bird. And it drops off this young girl that it's carrying into a forest that sits right on the top of the island. And Link, showing off that bravery, sets off to help the girl. This is a nice little setup to get you going into a little bit of action here, I guess. You go to the Forest of Fairies. Just a little side note, but makes, you know, another little reference to Ocarina of Time here. This was one of the fountains frequented by the Hero of Time. But here we get kind of, I guess, the real combat tutorial, because you get to fight some bokoblins up in the forest. You know, it's a little underwhelming.
I appreciate it for what it is. As I was going through it, something you said a while ago, I think it would have been cool if there was like some sort of mini dungeon type thing, or even like a mini dungeon, you know. The setting is cool enough, and it doesn't take enough time where I think it's a waste of time, if you know what I mean. I think it's just short enough where I'm kind of okay with it not being anything impressive. It really is kind of just a way to introduce you to fighting enemies.
The fighting, it feels nice, like the game feels smooth, and I like the music when you hit the enemies. That's kind of dynamic. I don't know, I guess it's not supposed to be too complicated. Like, this is not like a combat oriented game in the way that like A Link to the Past is. You know, I feel like the combat is kind of simplistic, but maybe that's, you know, I'm wanting something else that the game's not trying to be. I don't know.
And then you get a nice little cutscene with Tetra.
I like her characterization right away. She's the, you know, pirate leader. She's somewhat brash. She pays no mind to Link, you know, she's
Sassy.
just like, huh? Link came and saved her, and she's just like, okay, I gotta go.
The pirate, Gonzo, he's just like, what, but miss, what about this boy? And she's like, don't worry about him.
And things get bad when we leave the forest. There's a lot of great scenes right away in the beginning of this game. That bird comes back, but it snatches up Errol. Once again, Link, in his bravery, but maybe lack of forethought, I guess, he charges off the cliff to running after her, and Tetra catches him and kind of chastises him, calls him like stupid or something. So it's like both heartbreaking, but it also kind of comical there. We talked about the personal stakes. Like, this is like our motivation to want to like go after that thing, because that's, to us, that's like what the game is about now.
Some Zelda games do play this card where it's like something close to you. Like another one I'm thinking of is Twilight Princess, where it's like the kids get kidnapped and stuff like that. This one really hits home for me. It's probably because I played it when I was young. It's probably also because I have a younger sister who is probably about the same age difference as Link and Errol.
Link wants to go with the pirates to go after her. They at first decline, but then that postman who we saw earlier, he steps in and like does Link's battles for him here. He does a little like argument about girls with long ears have been getting captured all over the Great Sea, and the bird they were pursuing was trying to capture Tetra, obviously, but it got confused, thought Errol was Tetra, and swept her up. Not only that, Link helped rescue Tetra from the monsters, whether she acknowledged it or not. You know, he kind of owns them with facts and logic or whatever, and was like, you gotta kind of bring him along. And I guess they feel indebted to him, but Tetra obviously doesn't think Link is up to the task, obviously. Another little detail that's worth pointing out here, I like this, we kind of get our first mention of the dungeon. They say, you know, they're taking him to the Forsaken Fortress, and there's a little foreshadowing. Foreshadows the game and makes it a little epic. It also kind of builds Tetra's character up. Tetra's like, isn't that where? And we're kind of left with a little tease. Makes you think, we kind of find out later. But at the time you're like, oh, does everyone know? Does she just know, you know, what's going on here? I like that.
Gotta go get your shield.
She calls the sword like a cheap little sword. Go say goodbye to your family. We don't want you to get homesick and start crying. They kind of berate Link some more, which is funny. And that's where we get the real, I think, heartbreaking scene with grandma saying goodbye to her. She gives you the shield.
It's heart-wrenching. You see her start crying, It's so sad.
That's one where it makes me think of my mom or my grandma, because they're just both really sweet. I mean, she kind of says it forthright in the scene where she's like, how could something like this happen to Errol? You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about, like, when I think of, like, if my mom or my grandma are ever sad, it's like, no, they should never be sad. Tetra, she rags on Link some more, but we also get that little, waving, that iconic scene where he's waving goodbye to everyone on the island, and then looks over and sees the grandma there and does the extra sad wave.
That's absolutely heartbreaking every time.
They pull the rug out, though, because Tetra kind of belittles Link some more there.
Immediately. And
it cuts right to, now we're on the ship, and that pirate music starts playing, and it's so good. And we get to kind of meet the crew, and they just have, like, fun character designs and, like, kind of quirky voice acting or personalities. I don't know, they're just very distinct, even though there's not really much to them, Even one gives, like, a little tease with what I was playing on before, where he's like, he thinks he maybe recognized Link's outfit from somewhere. Actually, this is, I think, the highlight for me of the pirate ship section is Nico, because with the tutorialization and gameplay stuff here, they tie his character's, like, personality into it really well. Because Nico, he's responsible for Link basically on this journey, and he's like the lowest in command. You get a little tutorial here about swinging on ropes, and that'll be useful, I guess, and you get the spoil bag.
Well, I love Nico. I think he's hilarious, and I like that, Link's his new swabby, and he gets a big head. He's like, oh, it's probably going to take you a year or so to complete, but if you can get here before then, I'll give you a little prize. And then you get over there, and he's like, what?
It's not difficult either.
No. We constantly talk about kind of this part of the game and how just the intro going into Forsaken Fortress and the rest of it, we talk about the pacing a lot. This was actually one where on this playthrough, I was doing this Nico thing, and it's a fun little tutorial. I love Nico. I love being on the pirate ship, but as I was doing it, I was kind of like, I felt like it wasn't really necessary.
This is something, I think we talked about it in our intros video on Zelda Dungeon, but like, I was noticing things in the Great Deku Tree that I didn't realize were tutorializations when I was watching my niece play. Just like jumping over a ledge. Like, oh yeah, they would have to teach you that. And I felt like this is something that's like a little more complicated, but it's of that level where this could have just been taught in the dungeon itself. Even just like a rope with a line of text or something,
They could have had in that Forest of Fairies, maybe have like a hanging vine or something. And especially when the reward is just the spoils bag, which feels like a completely unnecessary item anyways.
It does kind of work in a weird way, just because, like you said, he takes this task so seriously, but we're talking about this task right now as, do we even need to do this? And even Tetra is like, what were you guys doing down there? You know what? Don't even tell me.
It makes it feel more like a genuine adventure. Not that this is a realistic game or anything. It's not like you're immediately gonna show up at the Forsaken Fortress. There's gonna be some time where you're on the ship and you gotta do some stuff. It's not like they set off and then immediately it fades to black and then instantly they're at Forsaken Fortress, you know what I mean?
Would it have stuck out as much if the Forest of Fairies was like a little mini dungeon and this was just kind of like a little transition from the first mini dungeon to, I guess, whatever the next dungeon is, Like, it would feel more like the stealth section in Ocarina of Time at the castle, where it's like, this is a weird segment, but it's like kind of a quirky little thing I'm doing between like Deku Tree and the next dungeon, It's like kind of a little novelty. Whereas in this, I feel like I kind of just want to play, like, I want to get in and like fight some stuff and like, solve puzzles, and they're still like giving you the rope swinging and stuff,
If they had something a little bit more substantial in the Forest of Fairies, I feel like they still could have had a little bit of time on the pirate ship, but maybe it's just something where Tetra's like, oh, go talk to Nico, he needs to tell you something or whatever.
I think when he set off on the pirate ship, that feels like the moment of like, I'm ready to explore the sea, I guess. We'll get into it later, but I think it does get to a nice like, go explore the world moment. It's just much later.
I've been playing this game since I was a kid, so I don't really notice these things when I'm playing through, or at least they don't feel egregious to me anymore. It's like when we talk about the pacing of a lot of games, certain games feel really padded out and feel like it takes a long time to do a lot of things. Even though you don't really get into a lot of the heavy exploration or heavy dungeon puzzle solving combat stuff for a while in this game, the things that you are getting are compelling enough for me to continue playing.
I do this with every game, actually. Even when I'm doing the ranking, I try to come to every game and I'm like with an open mind, and I just want to like vibe with it. You know, I don't want to like work against it. You know what I mean? Because like A Link to the Past is a game where you can choose to like not engage with it in the way it fully wants you to, and it'll just be fine. It'll be great. It did help for me to kind of be like, I'm gonna kind of take it all in, you know. So I'm like reading all the text boxes, and you know, some games like that work for me, some games don't, you know. And we'll get us to that first, I guess, dungeon. We get a good look at the Forsaken Fortress, and they kind of set stakes with it, because they're like, they say it used to be home to like some small time pirates or whatever, but something recently has changed and it's under tight guard and there's no way we'll be able to get nearby. That's where we have the very creative solution to get Link inside. This is, I think, probably one of the more memorable cutscenes of the game, I think, too. They launch Link in a barrel into the fortress, and the sword goes flying as he smashes into a wall and plummets down into a little pool of water. It's good. That's good comedy. It's a good setup. We're gonna dive into the first dungeon, which we will do on the next episode, because this has been quite a nice, lengthy discussion. I really enjoyed it. I like how this turned out. Next time, we're gonna get into the Forsaken Fortress. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be probably a unique dungeon in the game, and I'm excited to talk to everyone next time.